flying back and forth between Russia and Ukraine, and it's still in a situation where it could blow up at any time. Okay, let's look at a little bit more at Syria here, looking at the live updates on the Al Jazeera website. The Al Jazeera is an Arab, an Islamic, Arab website. And Israeli attacks are continuing, it says. And of course, we know that their objective basically is to destroy the Syrian military capability, the capability of any power that may come in, that may take charge in Damascus eventually. Right now, they're trying to figure out who that's going to be. And it seems to be sort of, HTS seems to be taking control of the situation, but Israel has an opportunity right now to, without any opposition, without any anti-air missiles or anything like that, to just go in and just bomb everything to smithereens, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're destroying aircraft, they're destroying airfields, they're destroying military labs, they're destroying anything that could be used to threaten Israel's security. And they're doing a very, very thorough job. And here, Israel Air Force continues to pound Syria, striking ports and missile warehouses in Latakia and Tartus. Tartus, of course, is the place where the Russian port is, but the Israelis are not bombing the Russian part of the port, but the Syrian part of the port. In Latakia is the airfield that the Russians have been using to, it's kind of a transit point to their planes going to Sudan and Libya and other areas in Africa. As their ground troops move deeper into Syrian Golan Heights, effectively expanding their occupation. This is, of course, expanding occupation. This is, after all, an Arab website. Rights groups sound the alarm over worsening conditions in the northeast, where fighting between Turkish-backed forces and Kurdish forces has displaced more than 100,000. So Turkish-backed forces and Kurdish forces were, together they were opposing the Assad regime, but now that the Assad regime is gone, they're fighting each other. And Turkey, of course, as you may know, considers Kurdish forces to be terrorists, and they do not want a Kurdish, what shall I say, Kurdish sovereign area on their border. And that's what Northeast, there's a pretty good chance that that's going to happen in Northeast Syria pretty soon. All right, and then here, okay, the funeral in Syria there. European countries shouldn't jump on the opportunity to send Syrians back, it says. Syrians in Europe are not excited to go back. There was an interview with one of them who said, well, yeah, I'm glad that Assad is gone, but, the economic situation. So basically, if I go back, I won't find a job. And G7 to fully support the Syrian government that respects rule of law. This is Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the UK, and the US are ready to support the transition to an inclusive government of Syria, according to a statement issued by G7 President Italy. So that's why Italy is opening up its diplomatic offices in Damascus. They're the president of the G7 right now. Of course, the presidency goes around, they take turns. We stand ready to support a transition process that leads to credible, inclusive, and non-sectarian governance that ensures respect for the rule of law, universal human rights, including women's rights, and protection of all Syrians, the statement said. And some people are using sort of Turkey as an example. Turkey is Islamic, but they are kind of a secular state. At least they say they are. Well, in comparison to Afghanistan, of course, or other places, they are a secular state. The G7 will work with and fully support a future Syrian government that abides by those standards and results from the process. So, yeah, so in Syria sent out 6 million refugees, and they're all over the place, and not prepared for a mass return of refugees, I'll bet, yeah. And Israel is seeking the moment to debilitate Syria's defenses. Well, not just defenses, but their offenses as well. And Syrian fighters raided Ba'ath Party offices in Damascus. Okay. All right, so that's probably about enough for that. Yeah. All right, let's see here. Okay, so we have an interview that's going to be 18 minutes long. Richard Battle, speaker and author. Okay, right, later on. Fine. That's going to be 18 minutes, so we will have that, I guess, at 42, right? Okay, so 7:42, we will switch to the interview. All right. Okay, let's see here. Now, as for South Korea, the chaos continues. The political chaos continues. The second impeachment vote has been scheduled for this Saturday. And last time, the vote failed because they could not get a quorum. And for an impeachment vote, they need 2/3 of the 300 members of the National Assembly present. They could only get about 195, I think, 190 or something like that in the 195, I guess, because 192 of the opposition plus 3 government party people are also there. Since then, the members of the government party have been challenged by public opinion and pressured by, I guess, their constituents to participate in the impeachment vote and to vote for impeachment. So there is a reasonable chance that the impeachment will be passed on Saturday, and then it will go to the Constitutional Court, because Korea does not have 2 chambers in its legislature like the United States does. The U.S. has the House of Representatives and the Senate. Korea only has only one chamber. So after the impeachment is passed by a 2/3 vote in the House or in the National Assembly, then it goes to the Constitutional Court, which is a separate court from the Supreme Court, and they deal with the constitutional issues, including impeachment. And then there has to be a 2/3 majority, where at least 6 people on the Constitutional Court have to vote in favor. There's a little bit of hiccup there because right now the Constitutional Court, 3 seats are currently empty, vacant. But I'm sure they'll figure out a way around that. That's kind of a technical issue. So I think things are proceeding in a chaotic way, but also basically according to the course that I have outlined already. I published a piece on Truth Social about this, and so if you haven't heard me speak about this already on the King's Report, I invite you to go to my account on Truth Social and read that piece that I published there. Okay. My wife and I will be going to Korea. It looks like, well, for the last several months, I've been saying it looks like we're going soon. So I'm a little bit reluctant, but there has been a development, which is very hopeful, that is kind of opening up the way now for us to return to Korea. And our sort of a permanent, what does that mean? Permanent home kind of is in Korea right now. We have a place there that we own, and right now we are in the United States temporarily. Doesn't feel very temporary, but ostensibly temporarily, and we'll be returning to Korea. I think within the next month, by the middle of January. I don't know though. I don't know. I don't know what God has in mind. But I keep saying, I keep pretending as though I'm in charge. I keep pretending as though I'm in charge of my life. It's nice. It's nice to pretend that. Okay. All right. Let's see what else is going on right now. Okay. Newsmax is going to shut me out. Okay. All right. Let's go to Breitbart. And so Breitbart has a story right now about Biden's legacy of letting all sorts of people in, and also this TPS program. The two are. I don't know what they're laughing about. I doubt that they've had anything to laugh about together in the last month or so. This must have been taken sometime before the election. President Joe Biden has more than tripled the number of foreign nationals allowed to remain in the United States through a quasi-amnesty program. Congressional Research Service reveals temporary protected status was first created under Immigration and Nationality Act of 1990 and prevents federal immigration officials from deporting nationals of countries designated as experiencing famine, war, or natural disasters. Since the Clinton administration, TPS has been transformed into a quasi-amnesty program as the Clinton, Bush, Obama, and Trump administrations have continuously renewed the program for a variety of countries. Under Biden, TPS has ballooned to unprecedented levels. The latest Congressional Research Service report finds that more than 1 million foreign nationals remain in the U.S. thanks to TPS. In addition, nationals from Hong Kong, Palestine, Lebanon, and Liberia remain in the U.S. through deferred enforcement departure. When Biden took office in late January 2021, fewer than 320,000 migrants were in the U.S. as a result of securing TPS. Today, 17 countries have TPS designations: Afghanistan, Burma, Cameroon, El Salvador. Listen, I think Trump can scratch that as soon as he gets in. El Salvador, they should not be in TPS. They're not suffering war or famine or natural disaster or anything like that. El Salvador has really been transformed. Okay, so he's a dictator, yes, but he has transformed El Salvador. And even if they are sort of members of the opposition and disagree, unless they're giving cover to MS-13 folks, yeah, and we don't want to give cover to them, right? Ethiopia, Haiti, Honduras, Lebanon, Nepal, Nicaragua, Somalia, South Sudan, Syria, Ukraine, Venezuela, and Yemen, right? So I think some of those countries, probably they can go back. I think Nepal has had some natural disasters, but I think that's pretty well been taken care of. Nicaragua. So I guess a lot of these are dictatorship countries where people will be persecuted if they go back. And so they're concentrated in several states, okay? And 900,000 Venezuelans in the US, for instance, either have TPS or are newly eligible for the program thanks to the Biden administration. Likewise, more than 300,000 Haitians were afforded TPS earlier this year. So 900,000 Venezuelans, I assume that many of those people are victims of the bad economic policies of the current communist government in Venezuela. So should America take responsibility for bad economic policies by countries like that? Okay, all right. Well, we'll see what happens with that. All right, it's about time for us to go to the interview. So let's go ahead and cue that interview. Richard Battle, speaker and author, and I will see you all tomorrow.
It's my pleasure to welcome Richard Battle. He's an author and speaker. We've had you on the show before, and we want to ask your advice, Mr. Battle, about how not to battle on Thanksgiving during the Thanksgiving dinner and have an enjoyable experience. Welcome to the show.
Well, good morning, Richard. Thank you so much for having us back with you again. And it's very great to have Thanksgiving week this week, although I believe we should be thankful every day and have had some experiences that have reinforced my opinion about that.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, you're making a really important point. You know, usually sometimes I'm in a grumpy mood and kind of complaining, and then I see somebody who has life a lot worse than I do, and then I say, "Boy, Richard, you're really ungrateful. SOB, you should be more grateful."
Well, that's exactly the case. And even though I've had worse situations than this, 8 years ago, uh, on the Monday before Tuesday before Thanksgiving, I ended up having a heart stent put in and was let out of the hospital on Thanksgiving Eve. And that was my best Thanksgiving ever. But I started the habit that I like to, before I go to bed at night, just kind of reflect on the day.
Mm,
And it's amazing how many times I can see God's hand in providing me things that I didn't uh, try to do. It wasn't on my to-do list. It wasn't one of my goals, but it's amazing if we just stop and look a little bit how we can find things to be thankful for.
So how do we avoid having those really acrimonious debates at Thanksgiving where hopefully not violent, but you know, some people they feel very strongly about these issues, political differences, the recent election, for instance. How can you avoid having hopefully not a violent interchange, but at least an angry one?
Well, to take part of Churchill's saying in victory, magnanimity, I think for we who were on the winning side of the election, we have to be very low key and not put it in anybody's face and not talk about it. And we
Right,
have to deflect any initial negative comments, I think, that can come our way
right,
and not reply in a way that starts or ignites a disagreement.
right.
Because the first blow, how you respond to the first blow, is the key to the whole incident, in my opinion.
Right, that's a good point. I remember 4 years ago when Mr. Biden was elected or chosen, and I remember thinking, well, I did not vote for him. I'm not happy about the way the election was conducted, but he is the president, and you know, I pray that he'll do a good job, and because he is the president of the entire country, whether we're happy or not.
Well, that's exactly correct. And there's been several elections in my lifetime that didn't go the way I wanted.
Right,
And we have to remember that we're United States. We don't all agree. That's part of freedom, is disagreeing sometimes, but how we handle those disagreements are important. I think there is an opportunity for unity in the country. And why do I think that? Because I look back after the Civil War. 600,000 men gave their lives
right,
fighting for their beliefs, and those disagreements were long and bitterly held. And the result of that war and everything was a division. But yet the country was brought back together by statesmen who realized it was important to reunify. And I think that opportunity's there. I think it was missed in this current administration because they would say unity, but then they would initiate policies that were divisive. And if you're
right.
going to speak about unity, the policies have to be about all Americans, not specific groups.
Right. Well, I'm glad that I will no longer be accused of being a domestic terrorist. I
Well, yes, because I used to always think of myself as pretty middle of the road, at least in the prior debates from the politics from one party versus the other. But
right.
I don't think I ever moved, but the media seemed to have moved me into a different category.
Yeah, that's right. And I thought it's pretty interesting how the supporters of Donald Trump this election were not just Republicans. I mean, there were some very prominent Democrats who came over to support his candidacy. So maybe there is common ground.
Well, yes, and I think there's encouragement in that. But as I stated long before the election, I don't think this election was a normal Democrat versus Republican. I think it was much more a globalist agenda versus a nationalist agenda. And so that reordered the coalitions, if you will, and brought different people together who believed in nationalism versus the globalism, or who are making a living off of the government.
That's right. You know, we had the Radhavarn Freedom Festival last month, and we had 300 visitors from Japan and also Korea, and they sang the Battle Hymn of the Republic and God Bless America, and it was pretty moving, I have to say, to see that they, I mean, we were in a war with them, right? 70
Well,
years
we have to
ago.
remember
Yeah.
our Constitution is the longest serving governing document in the world right now.
Right.
The principles it was founded on are still superior to any other government in history as well. It's our execution of those principles that have caused the problems. And one of the things that just amazes me, and as I researched my latest book, Americans Who Made America, it was how the founders came together and put aside their differences and individual interest to write the Declaration, fight an 8-year war, and create the Constitution, and put that into our foundation. And then once all that was done, then they went out and started pushing for their selfish personal interest again. And so to me, that was Providence working in our favor.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem that when you're in a war, you really don't care who's in your foxhole, as long as he can shoot, right? in the right direction. But after the war is over, you're free to argue. and so I mean war, I mean, as horrible as it is, war does draw out, or can draw out, an amazing level of sacrifice, you know, for a higher purpose, right?
Well, yes, and as the quote, who I can't remember who said it, war is diplomacy by other means.
Right.
And so, of course, we don't want that around the globe or
Right.
civilly, either one right now. And I think and hope that President Trump succeeds. I hope that every time there's a success, that it's shared with the public, saying, here's what we did, here's how it's in the public's best interest. Because I think if that happens and there are multiple successes, that will reinforce the election, and it will make people feel better about the country going forward, that we're on the right track. And I saw that when I traveled to Charlotte for an event a week or so ago. The people's attitudes were so positive. Donald Trump's name never came up, but people were so encouraged by the potential change that we're getting ready to experience.
I hope so. And the other encouraging thing in my mind was how many Hispanic men especially voted for Donald Trump this time. And it's much more of a multiracial coalition that supported him, and young men and people of different faiths. The Amish came out in Pennsylvania and voted for him. And yeah, it is hopeful, I have to say that.
One of the greatest miscalculation I believe the Democrats made was believing that Hispanics were monolithic,
Right.
and they're not. They are a great God-fearing people. They're hardworking. They're family people. I was married to a lady from Laredo, Texas for 20 years, and spent a lot of time on the border there, as well as all up and down the border for business as well as pleasure over the years. The Hispanic people are a great people. They want the same things any other Americans want: safety, pro-family policies, the government setting the stage for a good economy and an opportunity to prosper and leave our children a better world behind. And so to put all of them in a box and to think that they would vote Democrat to import more illegal aliens. Most of the legal Hispanics in the country who've been here longer than the gringos in Texas, for example,
That's
are
true.
all wanting the border to be secure. They want people to come here legally, not illegally. So their viewpoint's exactly the same as most Americans.
Right. Let me ask you this. You know, we have what 10 million or more people who entered the country illegally during the past 3.5 years. And President Trump is talking about, I guess, starting out with those who have committed crimes. But do you have any thoughts about, I mean, to me, this looks like a very messy operation. I can't envision it being a very peaceful enterprise. I mean, I do know that some people are self-deporting, right? I mean, they're urging them to. I don't know if we're even helping them to buy a plane ticket to go back home, and that obviously would be the best. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, yes, and I believe there's an operation that can be done. What's interesting to me is people will be self-deporting now. When they start the program, I think they'll focus on criminals. If we adjust the payments and the welfare that we are giving now and stop that,
Right.
will incent people to leave as well. They know that if they are caught and deported, that there's a penalty that will restrict their ability to come back.
Right.
And I think that if they self-deport, there are opportunities to provide work permits for some of them to come back. And so there's all kinds of facets to this as well. But if you'll remember, when President Bush was president, the number that was always talked about was there were 12 million illegals in the country at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad that you clarified roughly 10 million or more in the last 3.5 years. And so if those are true, which is possible, that means we could have 20 plus million illegal aliens. And so there's a lot of ways to slice and dice this. The illegal alien problem is a national security problem, as you know. It's a financial security because just New York City spent $5 billion taking care of illegals, putting them up $400 or $500 a night in fancy hotels. And then there's a health security issue because there's been an importation of diseases that were eradicated in the US 50 years ago. And so it's a multifaceted program. It won't happen overnight, but I think that starting it and putting the effort out and any success happens will be beneficial to the country.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, I think you're right. I'm thinking about the Democrat Party. I'm sure there are a lot of people who really invested many, many years of their lives to support the Democrat Party. You know, you look back, John F. Kennedy. There are people that they many Americans do admire, and then to see this party endorse such a radical agenda. I mean, the transgender surgery on children and the illegal migration. I mean, there's so many policies that are really antithetical to most Americans, including Democrats. I'm pretty sure that there are a number of Democrats who must have voted for Donald Trump this time.
Well, absolutely. And what gets me, though, are the political elected officials on the Democrat side that once the election was over and they saw that they lost, all of a sudden they started saying negative things about the policies that they put in. But yet when they were on the other side of it and the policies came up, they voted with their party every time for those policies.
That's
And
right.
so they cannot escape responsibility for those. I believe they have to have responsibility for those policies that they put into place and support it. And then it'll be real interesting to see how they go forward. And there's going to have to be, I believe, a discussion of who leads the party, where it goes, and they're going to be preparing that because they're already fighting for the next election. As you see, Kamala Harris is already considering running in 28 again, which is kind of interesting that the month hasn't even passed yet.
Oh, I didn't know that. I would not. I wouldn't bet a lot of money on her being successful.
No, but I hope she tries.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed talking with you today. Any other topics that you'd like us to know about, or is there a website for your books?
Well, I appreciate you asking that. And my website is richardbattle.com. I have 11 books all signed there. If people want any for Christmas gifts, if they'll email me, richard@richardbattle.com, we're happy to inscribe them. They're all at Amazon, including Kindle and audio. My latest is a patriotic historical book, Americans Who Made America, 18th Century Birth of the Republic, and it celebrates the can-do spirit of America, which I think made us successful, and it's the first of a projected 4-book series.
That's great. We really do need to have good materials, especially for ourselves and to share with our children, and so they can learn about American history instead of being educated to hate their country.
Well, that's part of the reason I did this. I got sick and tired of the government telling us what we couldn't do. And the people in our history who made things happen had that can-do spirit. And so I wanted to put something out that upper middle school and up could read. They could be proud of the country, learn some history, embrace some patriotism, share it with their kids, and be pro-American. And it's not political, but it is patriotic.
Okay, well, I really highly urge our audience to go to richardbattle.com and check out all those books.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And
Thank
thank
you
you
for
for
coming
having
on.
us, and God bless America.
God bless America, and have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Likewise. Happy Thanksgiving.